right now.
Well, and Richard, we conservatives criticize Barack Obama for talking about leading from behind. This is something completely different. I mean, we're not leading from the front. We're not leading from the behind. We seriously have put ourselves on the sidelines on every significant issue impacting the G7.
No, we're on the sidelines on trade, sidelines on climate, sidelines on Russia. We have an approach to North Korea that other people shrug their shoulders at. We're very different on Iran. So this is a fundamental departure. Again, Donald Trump came into office. You know this, Joe. And he believed two things passionately. He believed that the entire set of commitments he inherited wasn't worth it, that the price was much greater than the benefit. And he was against trade. Well, the other people sitting around this table, they survive by those commitments the United States has historically made. They are allies who have essentially cast their security and put it in our hands. So the fact that they are dealing for the first time ever, this is the first president since Harry Truman, the first president of the modern era who doesn't accept the foundations of post-World War II American foreign policy. He doesn't believe in the alliance structure. He doesn't believe in free trade. He doesn't believe in multilateralism. So this entire meeting is based on a divergence between America and historically our closest allies. That's why it can't work.
Can you imagine the relief the other leaders must have felt with the empty chair?
Climate would have been embarrassing. That would have been the equivalent of trying to negotiate a communique. There's no consensus, so you couldn't succeed.
And as Alex said in my ear, not leading from behind, leading from an empty chair. And Elise, one of the great disappointments is that we all have a president now who relates more to autocrats and right-wing nationalists in Central and Eastern Europe and across the globe than he does democratic nations that helped us win the Cold War and helped us win World War II.
It's right, Joe. I mean, look, it used to be the G7, then it was the G8 with Russia kind of the odd man out. Now it's the G6 with Trump the odd man out. He does kind of, appreciate leaders like Putin, leaders like Erdogan in Turkey, leaders in China, North Korea, everywhere around the world where there's just no opposition. He can do whatever he wants. Again, this is the presidency that Trump wants in his mind, where there's no opposition. He's lauded by his people. He can do whatever he wants and is kind of a godlike figure. Like he said, he's the chosen one. And so, the problem is that this meeting, the G7, and they're talking about China, he did have a real opportunity to lead on the China issue. I think, the idea that you should push back on China, you know better than anybody, Joe, that the whole idea of pushing back on China tariffs, on currency manipulation, on intellectual property does have merits. But this is the big disappointment, I think, of some supporters of President Trump, that the instincts to disrupt and, maybe shake things up a bit, he just disrupts it, leaves it on the floor, and walks away for someone else to clean up the mess. Ironically, this issue of China was something the G7 was meant to deal with. Had he said, listen, this trade war with China, has a purpose. We have to get China back to following international norms. He could have led, but instead he alienated European allies, talked about tariffs on aluminum and cars in Germany and just alienated all the allies. And I think this is a big disappointment. It's the same, people are joking about Greenland, for instance.